Welcome to another episode of the Anyone But Cam Offseason podcast. I am one of your hosts. My name is Frankie, and sitting across the from me is Cam. Cam, how are you doing?
Not too shabby. I have a presentation on Tuesday. We're recording on Friday, and my group it's like a group of high school JPs right now. So that's about how that presentation's going. How about yourself?
Are you about ready to go in and just erase all their work? Or they just don't do any work?
And then complain to the teacher about it and do the presentation without them.
Yeah.
Savage.
That's unfortunate. I'm in the middle of my 4 midterm stretch, doing number 2 today, and then got 2 more in the next 2 days. So that's fun. But the weather is nice. We are thriving, ladies and gents. It's May.
Oh my God, it is May.
It is May. We're a couple days in already. And as it is May, that means the NFL draft just happened, and we are in officially the offseason of the NFL. I know it's generally considered that the offseason starts after the Super Bowl, and for a lot of teams it starts in December, in January, but this is the real lull of the season. Of the year, where there is something going on for the season. So we are going to talk about football to fill in that void for all of you. We're actually going to talk about football today. Imagine that, Cameron, on our fantasy football podcast. We're going to talk about football today. Are you as pumped as I am?
Yeah, because this is like all I have to live for right now, because school sucks, so it's all I've been thinking about. Let's do it.
Alrighty, so we are going to talk about the NFL draft, but not just about the draft in general. Like, we can have our takes, like, oh yeah, Devin Bush is cool, Deontay, is great, TJ Hawkinson, cool. That's all stuff's nice and great for our own team, but we want to talk about it, relating it to the listeners of this podcast, aka the owners in our fantasy league for the most part. We're going to talk about some of the impacts of this off-season and the draft onto your guys' potential keeper picks for this next season. I have the keeper eligibility master sheet. We have it up here. We have who we think you guys are most likely to use as your keepers, if you are to use your keepers, and this upcoming season. And we're going to talk about the impact of things that have happened on those players. And yeah, how about we just get right into it? What do you say, Cam?
Yeah, let's get going.
Alrighty. So we'll start off here. I just have everything alphabetical order. So we'll start off here with Cam. Cam, going into this offseason, it would kind of be seen that the most likely players you'd probably be keeping, seeing as you already cut Kareem Hunt and can't keep him, although I can't imagine why anyone would want to. It kind of seems like the more likely candidates would be Melvin Gordon for a first, of course Alvin Kamara for a 10th, which we'll talk about later, and Tyreek Hill for a second, but Tyreek Hill might never play football again, so he's probably off the docket here. It's kind of looking like your two main choices here are Kerryon and Gordon. Would you say that's an accurate assessment?
Yeah, because apparently any Chiefs players I own just are the worst human beings imaginable. Who'd have seen that coming?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, goodbye, Mr. Cheetah. Maybe if you, I don't know, didn't actually do it, but, bad people are bad people. He punched his pregnant girlfriend. Oof.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I said Kerryon. I meant to say Kamara. Anyways, just for the people keeping score.
They're about both just as good in NFL talent-wise, so I understand why you confuse them.
Yeah, and so we look at some of the stuff that happened in the offseason and into the draft and talking about the impacts here. So the biggest impact probably out of the total here is that the Saints shipped off Mark Ingram to greener pastures over there in Maryland. And so he is by himself, will have a chokehold on the position once again. So I see that as a net positive for you all the way around. Not a whole lot going on the Chargers side of the ball here. But what do you think about the impact of Mark Ingram moving on from the team?
Well, they did sign Elmat, well-known, valuable commodity in this league. And I think he actually may have got more money than Mark Ingram ended up getting, just because he got it earlier.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, but I'm not really worried about it, just because, he's no Mark Ingram, IMO. Mm-hmm. Good thing we don't have Justin on yet to discount that, though. And we all know how god-tier Kamara was at the beginning of the season, scoring like 40-point games. So let's hope that keeps going.
Yeah, I think that's about it from your side here. If you're okay to move on to Devin.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, Devin has some maybe the most potential picks here for keeper. One we'll talk about quite a bit, I think, here going forward is Todd Gurley for a first. We'll get back to that. Now here's where Kerryon comes in. Kerryon Johnson for a third round, as he would go for. Sticking with the Lions, we have Kenny Galladay for a 10th. Potentially Ertz, the first Eagle here, for a 6th round. Baker for a 9th potentially. Also, I guess he's throwing Carson Wentz there for a 5th potentially. I mean, for like a kind of bounce back season. Also, is just a plethora of quarterbacks on this team. He also has Deshaun Watson, who would go for an 8th. And Cam, you wrote another name here. What were you thinking with this?
Well, as a move from the gods to help Devin out, his favorite player in the league, Jordan Howard, goes to his favorite team, the Eagles. A match made in heaven, and Devin would be stupid to not put him on his team for a first-round pick next season.
I was about to ask you what his value is. Yes, he was in fact drafted in the 2nd round of last year's draft, so he would go for a first-round pick value this season. If Devin is really an Eagles fan, I think he'd do it. I think that's what it comes down to here.
Yeah.
So the interesting picks, I think Kenny G would be a solid pick for a 10th round. He could definitely emerge further, as we saw with the injuries of Marvin Jones losing Golden Tate over there in Detroit, as well as Ertz would be a great value at the 6th round. And then, Baker could be a good value. Watson could be back. All these could be pretty good value. The real question mark here is Todd Gurley. He's been one of the bigger stories in the offseason. The Rams did, in fact, pick a running back in the 3rd round, I believe it was, this season, in Darrell Henderson out of Memphis. And, as people have been following, I'm sure, but just as a quick recap, Gurley hurt his knee late into last season and affected him all through the end of the season into the playoffs, all the way through Super Bowl and beyond. Mixed reports of what the injury actually is, how impactful the injury actually is, and question marks over whether a big part of his lack of performance in the playoffs and the Super Bowl is more of a mental thing than anything, seeing as how well CJ Anderson was able to do in that offense in his absence. So a lot of people, last season could have, going into the season, if we hadn't had these kind of issues, I mean, the guy was, I believe he was offensive MVP last year, I believe, at the NFL honors, and
you mean offensive player of the year?
Yeah, that's not what I said.
You said MVP. A little different.
Yeah, offensive player of the year, sure. It could definitely be seen as like one of the top 1, 2, or 3 running backs going off just in like a redraft league, but there are a lot of question marks there, and if I'm glad I'm not Devin, actually, 'cause I have no idea what I would do with this pick. What do you think Devin should do, or what do you think is the right play here with Gurley?
Yeah, I mean, looking at Gurley, like you said, they drafted a running back in the 3rd, which was their 2nd pick in the draft because they traded back in the 1st. And then also, the Lions signed his backup running back to an offer sheet, which the Rams had a chance to match and keep him on their team, which they chose to do, meaning that they definitely wanted another backup for Todd Gurley. Right. So I don't know how confident the Rams are about Gurley's availability. So, maybe if Devin was in other people's keeper situation where they don't have quite as many options, I'd still consider keeping him. But with Devin having some good options there, I think going away from it, not a bad idea. And also Jordan Howard. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about that. Let's go ahead then. Let's go ahead to Dylan here. Dylan has some interesting picks, some potential picks here. Some of the ones we noted here is potentially Patrick Mahomes for a 12th round pick. James Conner for a 9th, George Kittle for an 11th, Adam Thielen, who was one of the best players in fantasy for the first half of last season, for a 5th round pick. Other notable players would be Stephon Diggs for a 2nd, Dalvin Cook for a 1st. Finding those a little bit less likely, in my opinion, just because he has some insane value in these middle lower rounds. George Kittle for an 11th, crazy. Patrick Mahomes could be insane, although he's had a lot of his supporting cast kind of not returning for this next season, Mahomes. James Conner for a 9th could also be a very, very valuable guy who had some really great weeks last season. Yeah, I feel like the no-brainer here is George Kittle for the 11th, but the next one, it's kind of some question marks. What are you thinking?
Yeah, George Kittle gets Jimmy G back next season. Supposedly, he can't stay healthy, but maybe he will at some point.
Yeah.
So definitely seems like he could have an even better season than his record-breaking season last year. Other than that, we all know Dylan hates quarterbacks with a burning passion. So don't really know what he's going to do with Patrick Mahomes. There were rumors out there he's trying to trade him out. So anyone listening to this might hit up Dylan. Who knows? But other than that, between James Conner and Adam Thielen, probably go Conner just because running back's more valuable and it's in a later round. And just the pure happiness that he got from stealing him from you last season. And not trading, or you not giving him Kenyon Drake for him. I feel like Dylan's got some good memories there.
I have PTSD. Yeah, I just think like when you compare like the likelihood of finding an RB1 in value in the 9th round versus finding a wide receiver 1 value in the 5th, you gotta go running back here.
Yeah, like if Dylan wanted Adam Thielen to stay on his team, he could draft him in like the 3rd or 4th round, but he couldn't draft James Conner that late, probably.
Yeah, no way. Alrighty, let's move on. I usually just think about impact. I guess impact I mentioned a little bit with Mahomes and Dylan trying to trade him, but he did lose both Kareem Hunt and Tyreek.
Not officially Tyreek yet, but probably.
Well, yeah, sure. And then we talk about like his season of James Conner. Le'Veon did finally move on. I believe we did draft Benny Snell behind him. So now we have basically a 3 running back committee here, or potential committee. I don't think it's going to be a committee, but we have 3 capable running backs, I feel, in Pittsburgh. Nothing really impacting George Kittle for coming back for Jimmy G, as you mentioned. And then Adam Thielen, I don't think the Vikings did a whole lot on the offensive side of the ball this
They got an O-lineman in the 1st round, which was really what they needed.
Right, and they got Irv Smith Jr., the tight end of Alabama. But I'm looking just for a wide receiver real quick. I'm not seeing a single wide receiver in this draft. That's right. They got Dylan Mitchell. I almost forgot about that out of Oregon. He's more of a Laquan Treadmill fix than a Thielen threat. Let's just keep it at that, and we'll just move on here. We'll go on to me next. I'm alphabetically next. Philip Lindsay for a 9th round pick, as he was a free agent pickup for me. Juju Smith-Schuster for an 8th. I did not write in Sammy Watkins for a 6th to this sheets. And then the potential would definitely be Sony Michel for a 4th. I guess something else maybe to possibly consider is Cortland Sutton for a 9th as well, getting the potential of a bounce back season for Joe Flacco, which a lot of people are writing in, or maybe in a breakout season for Drew Lock. Potential there, that's a lot of question marks and not what I'm going to go with, but it's something maybe to consider. Kiki Kuti as well was a very valuable part of the Texans offense when he was healthy, but it's a lot of question marks there too. So the likely picks for me are going to be either Sony Michel, Philip Lindsay, or Juju. I'm thinking of impact. Not a whole lot of these players were super impacted from the draft in the offseason. If anything, I feel like the Patriots are even more behind Sony Michel than they previously were. Juju I guess Juju is probably the most impacted by the offseason with the loss of AB, and now Juju will no longer have the pleasure of facing the second best coverage, second best quarterbacks on the team. He'll now be facing wide receiver 1 coverage, so we'll have to see how he adjusts to that. But anyway, he is still a potential wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and I can get him in the 8th round, which is really nice value. So I don't know. Did you have any takeaways or some opinions on my potential keepers?
I was actually surprised you wrote off Sammy Watkins so quick, because, let's say Tyreek Hill does go away. He's easily the most established wide receiver for Patrick Mahomes, I guess, unless you count Travis Kelce, but he's tight end. So, Tyreek Hill, the highest scoring wide receiver in fantasy last year, if he takes over that role, a 6th round would be pretty good value.
I guess I'm someone who is predicting an emergence of Chris Connolly this season. And pause. What's up, guys? It's Frankie from the future here. Chris Connolly was definitely traded to the Jaguars. I don't know why I thought he was still on the Chiefs. So that point is null and void. Although I do think he is going to have a good season with Nick Foles as quarterback, but he's not on the Chiefs. So anyways, back to your regular scheduled podcast. and I don't trust Sammy Watkins, to be
All right.
honest. But things can change. Other than that, let's move on here. Wow, we have to move on to Greg, and that's unfortunate for everyone involved.
Especially Greg.
Especially Greg. I guess. Okay, all is not lost here. He does have AJ Green for a first, which could be valuable. Leonard Fournette for a first, again, could be valuable. I'm not liking this so far. Matt Ryan for a 13th. That could be a good pick, good value.
I think he was QB 2 last season.
Yeah. And the entire Atlanta draft was dedicated to getting a better offensive line to protect Matt Ryan. They literally, if you listen to I can't remember the name of the GM's name at Atlanta, but his conversations on the phone with the draft picks during the draft is he basically like, "Are you guys ready to come here and protect Matt Ryan?" Was like literally what he said. So their objective is clear.
And if Greg doesn't have Aaron Rodgers on his team, he could actually play Matt Ryan when he's good.
Yeah, I can't imagine he keeps Aaron Rodgers for a second round value, especially when he has maybe the worst receiving core around him in his entire career at this point. But yeah, other than that, Tyler Boyd for a 9th round value as a free agent, that'd be a good pickup, I think. As of probably, if he is going to go anywhere, I can't imagine he is going for any of these guys with higher values. Like maybe Peyton Barber for a 5th, I find that a stretch, but not totally crazy. Maybe I'm not sure. I have to think about that. Demaryius Thomas for a 4th is kind of crazy.
He's a Patriot now, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Other than that, I think it's probably looking like Tyler Boyd for a 9th, Matt Ryan for a 13th, if he does pick anyone.
Which, I mean, those are at least value picks, so if he gets good picks in the beginning of the draft, it won't affect him too bad.
Yeah. Okay, let's move along here. To Jake Logan, who has some good players on his team here. Let's see. We have, maybe the most valuable player in all of fantasy, and Mitchell Trubisky for a 9th round free agency. I mean, come on.
He was good enough to get Jake to drop Deshaun Watson and spend like $50 a fab, so it's got to be amazing.
I mean, Mahomes for 11th or 12th, that's great. But Trubisky for a 9th? Are you kidding me? That's insane. More seriously speaking, Ezekiel Elliott for a 1st, who could be the running back 1 this season. This could be a good value. Although, I guess that isn't good value because you're getting him at his value. Anyways, Robert Woods for a 6th round pick, Mike Evans for a 2nd with Bruce Arians at the helm over there now, and we also has the potential for Darius Geis here at the 12th round, who he traded from you, I believe. You picked him in the 13th round last season. You traded him. What was that trade? Do you remember?
I got Doug Baldwin because I was trying to get rid of my. Get rid of guys for someone that could actually help me make a championship run, and then I value names too much, so it just didn't end up working.
Yeah, rest in peace, Doug Baldwin. I'm going to miss him. But yeah, Geis is the obvious pick here for the 12th. He traded for him. I guess the question is Robert Woods for a 6th, Evans for a 2nd, or Zeke for a 1st? That's pretty much because he cut pretty much everyone else on his team. The only other person available to be picked would be Corey Davis for a 3rd, which for the memes would be amazing. But I don't think Jake can risk, almost losing, having another season go to waste here. So yeah. Anyways, Guys for 12th, and then who do you think is probably the best pick here, either between Zeke, Robert Woods, and Mike Evans?
I feel like here, Woods is probably the worst, or will have the worst finish of the 3 of Zeke, Woods, and Evans, but he's also the cheapest. So it really comes down to whether or not Jake just values getting value or just getting the best players on his team. Evans is interesting because they did lose Deshaun Jackson and Adam Humphries this offseason,
right,
and switch to Bruce Arians. So there's a lot of uncertainty around him with going into Jameis's last season on his contract.
Right.
Maybe all those people leaving helps him get peppered with even more targets and he can be outstanding. Maybe he just can't handle not having that good of an offense anymore. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting question.
Yeah, it's also interesting because I think it's not a huge stretch to say that this is the best Cowboys team we've seen in quite some time, and they were a good team last year, especially in the later half of last year. The latter half, I mean. But so Zeke could definitely be someone I could definitely see him taking as well. But yeah, let's move on here now to Jacob Pond, who has some interesting decisions to make here as well. Kept David Johnson through 2 lost seasons. The question is he willing to put up with a potential third with all the changes, all of the turnover in Arizona, going to now having a brand new coach, new offensive coordinator, a brand new quarterback? The really question is how much is their offensive line going to really improve? That's kind of the big question here, or how much they're going to be able to make David Johnson work in the passing game. But he is a first-round value in our league. Tyler Lockett for a 10th round pick. That's a good value pick as well. I'm not super sure if the 6th one is value for Edelman for a 4th, but he is a Patriots fan, so I'm kind of putting that into consideration.
Slut.
Yeah, I guess Lamar Miller for a second is also something not to totally look over, but I would find that to be a bit of a stretch. And then Deshaun Jackson, who went home to Philadelphia for a 12th round value up there, could be good as well. And who knows? Maybe he has the wide receiver 2 in Green Bay there in Geronimo Allison at the 13th pick as well. So some interesting decisions here. If I'm Jake, I have some question marks if I'm even really considering keeping anyone besides her, maybe Tyler Lockett. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Lockett in the 10th round, if Doug Baldwin does retire like we're expecting, Tyler Lockett was basically like a wide receiver 1 last season, I feel like.
Yes.
They do have a very run-heavy offense, but Tyler Lockett was the only person that was really immune to that. Yeah, Russell Wilson had a perfect passer rating targeting him last season.
He did.
So, 10th round. You gotta keep Lockett. I'm surprised you actually didn't, write Allison in this list or the short list of keeper possibilities. Because, wide receiver 2 for Aaron Rodgers. He was good at the beginning of the last season before he got hurt. And 13th round, you aren't really losing anything for that. So I wouldn't be surprised if you did that. David Johnson, maybe if you could get him in the late first, would be worth the keeper. But an early first pick, I don't know if I'd use one of my keepers on that.
Yeah, I didn't write Geronimo until because I didn't even really think about it until I started talking, and I realized actually there's the potential for being the wide receiver 2 for Aaron Rodgers, but I don't even know if that means a whole lot with the current cast of characters. But alrighty, let's move on here now to Justin Moss, who has some interesting decisions here as well. Starting off with maybe one of the most valuable players in all of fantasy, Christian McCaffrey, for it be a first-round value. T.Y. Hilton will be a second-round value. He also got OBJ last season from a trade. He will be a first-round value. And Joe Mixon, also a first-round value. Other than that, not a whole lot here. I mean, Latavius Murray for a 10th, maybe. Jared Goff for a 9th, probably not. Definitely not Jimmy Graham for a 3rd, Jesus Christ. And Russell Wilson for a 4th seems like a stretch as well. So we have some really top-end value here. I guess the question is Justin confident in these guys to fill out the top part of his draft here? Because is he confident in them? Because he doesn't really have the flexibility to fill out these later half picks for his keepers. So outside of CMC, you have OBJ who changed teams, Ty who is on one of the best rosters in the National Football League, I would say, in the Colts currently, and Joe Mixon who performed very well last season. Some really tough decisions here for Justin.
Yeah, I mean, with C-Mac, you see the picture of him just looking jacked.
Oh my God, he's like a Greek god.
Yeah, that was wild. But there's a lot of questions with just Cam Newton and the offense around him if he'll come back healthy. OBJ, being on the Browns now, easily the best quarterback play he'll have ever had, but probably the most amount of targets around him with Njoku and Jarvis Landry. And
right.
Nick Chubb being the running back, don't really know how much he's used to being just peppered with targets, so that'll be interesting. Mm-hmm. And then Mixon, I don't know, he's on the Bengals. Bengals are, The Bengals.
I mean, new coach, not a whole lot
True.
changing around there though. Other than that, it's one of the most underreported stories is that the Bengals did finally move on from Marvin there. So yeah, something to look at, I guess. But you still have Dalton at the helm, and the team is mostly pretty much the same. Other than that, so.
If I'm Justin, I would maybe think about trading away one of these guys to a team that really needs like a solid keeper, like maybe Greg. Just like help Greg secure a solid stud in the first round. I don't think that'd be a bad idea.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility there. Now, Cam, your question, do you think that inevitably there will be a meltdown in Cleveland between Jarvis Landry and OBJ, or do you think they are really gonna, support each other in ways of competition to make each other better, or do you think at some point there's gonna be an argument and a meltdown over targets?
I think that if things don't go great for a little bit, that it could definitely get heated. But I don't think it's going to be like anything like a meltdown to where it just like derails the team for a while. Yeah. It'll just be like one game where they just get super heated and angry. And then like maybe they'll come out even better because they'll just go ham in practice this next week.
Yeah.
But if anyone I think can handle them, it's Baker.
Yeah, Baker, and I was going to say, I think Freddie Kitchens is very much a character man, and I think he's a coach that a lot of people can respect, and so I think that the people will do that. Yeah, so I think OBJ might have another fight with one of those kicking nets, but I'm not sure he's going to get into a real fight with Juice over there. All right, let's move on here to Austin Lassiter. Lassie himself has some picks here. Saquon for a first round value, maybe the best running back skill wise in the league, so that's a good one there. Aaron Jones for a seventh, not angry about that still. And Jarvis Landry, the previously mentioned Jarvis Landry for a fourth round pick. The only other potential ones here is Amari Cooper for a second. Although I think that's kind of a stretch. And Drew Brees for a sixth, who is a very valuable quarterback, although it completely fell apart towards the end of last season. Maybe signs of age finally really showing here for Drew Brees. So Aaron Jones to me sounds like a good value with a seventh. Jarvis Landry, I'm not sure if that's amazing value with a fourth, especially with OBJ coming into the helm now. And Saquon for a first is right at his value. So yeah, what are you thinking with Lassie's potential keepers?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting because Saquon, with getting rid of OBJ, he's going to be stacked against within the offense because they know that he's their only like super viable weapon. Mm-hmm. And Eli Manning, can't super throw it. But he was ridiculously amazing when OBJ was injured last season, so why stop? Juice is interesting. Jarvis in the fourth with the OBJ trade because you never know, like, with that offense. Actually, no, that offense was clicking pretty well last season anyway, and he wasn't super great. So I don't think I'd take him in the fourth. So yeah, Saquon and Aaron Jones makes sense for Lassie.
Yeah. Alrighty, let's go here to take a trip to Levi Town. We got some really top value here with some of these players. Michael Thomas, who would go for a first round pick. DeAndre Hopkins, also a first round value. Mark Ingram for a fourth, previously mentioned, and Travis Kelce for a third. Some other stuff here, Breida for 7, Duke Johnson, but not too much here. I guess the only other ones I would kind of look at here, maybe Chris Godwin for an 11th, with the new offensive Bruce Arians. I feel like I've read recently of Bruce Arians talking about wanting a big role or expecting a big role for Godwin this upcoming season. It's always a good sign. And then the question mark over who will be the wide receiver 2 for Green Bay, as we previously talked about, between Geronimo Allison and Levi's here, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, or also Equanimeous St. Brown. Kind of a toss-up between the three of them. But some really top-end value of Michael Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins. And Kelce for a third. Kelsey's probably going in the second round of this of drafts nowadays, huh? Or like end of second, beginning of third?
Yeah, I bet with Tyreek and Ace.
So yeah, he's not getting value out of any of these picks. He's just getting them at their value.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because Levi last season, I'm pretty sure he didn't do what we were expecting him to do. And I wouldn't be surprised if he did this again because from what I've seen, he really values tight ends. So Kelsey in the third, even without great value, it wouldn't surprise me if he went that way.
Right.
And otherwise, it's kind of a question: do you lock up the stud in Michael Thomas or DeAndre Hopkins? Probably DeAndre Hopkins would be better out of them too.
Yeah.
Or Chris Godwin in the 11th, get the value pick, and then maybe try and just draft one of those two guys.
Yeah.
But if you keep one of them in the first and you maybe get an early second pick, you could draft both of them. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what he's thinking.
Well, you have to see how the draft order affects all this as well, as we'll get to in a little bit, talking about draft order.
Foreshadowing.
2 more people left. You got Logan Roth, who has some insane, really valuable players who we got in an amazing trade this last season. Such a genuinely giving soul must have given him all these players like Larry Fitzgerald for a first-round value, Marvin Jones for a third, Kenyon Drake for a second. I mean, the value is just exploding off my page. Other than that, looking at maybe the biggest draft bust out of everyone. Well, no, probably not, because I guess Le'Veon is the biggest draft bust out of all of them because he literally didn't play. But Royce Freeman, one of the bigger draft busts of last season, who has on his team and could keep for a first-round value. Elijah McGuire for a 9th, I guess, because he's a free agent. Calvin Ridley for 7th, not too terrible, but I think the big story here and the only person really worth keeping, besides for maybe Calvin Ridley, is Devontae Adams for a 2nd. The wide receiver 1 for Aaron Rodgers here. What do you think about the potential for Logan's other picks besides for Devontae?
This is dismal. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, if I'm Logan, I'm trying to trade with maybe Dylan and get Patrick Mahomes or something, just to get some value in keepers.
Who does he trade for him, though? Like, I guess just picks, right?
Yeah, you just give him a draft pick or 2.
Yeah.
Because, like, Dylan's not going to be able to get Patrick Mahomes, so might as well get some value out of him.
Yeah.
But, Jesus. I mean, Calvin Ridley for a 7th is probably around where he's going to go. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
It might even be earlier, though.
Yeah. If anything, it'd be earlier, but definitely not later than 7th, I don't think.
Yeah, so maybe she just really liked Calvin Ridley from last season when he was really good at the beginning and then sucked afterwards.
I'm trying to think if the Falcons made any changes to wide receiver in the offseason. Not that I can think of off the top of my head, at least.
I mean, the biggest thing is just they lost Devin Coleman, and they're going to get back Devontae Freeman.
Right. All right. All right, let's move on here then to Tyler Walker, the last team here. Some good value on this team for sure. Nick Chubb for a 5th-round pick, great value there. Oh, I think at least like a 2-round value, probably around that. Antonio Brown for a first, Julio touchdown Jones for a first. Looking at other ways here, at quarterback he has Andrew Luck for a 12th, which could be a really good pick. Matthew Stafford for a 7th, that's probably too high for him this season. And Njoku for an 11th is an interesting decision here as well. James White for a 9th, I couldn't get behind. I'm not sure if I can get behind that. Although he was such a valuable player last year for him, I feel like most of the moves that I mentioned earlier for this offseason for the Patriots have shown that they want to get behind Sony more. And then Eric Ebron and Antonio Callaway for 9th-round value. And I think you're definitely looking for Chubb and probably Julio if he doesn't make these picks, because I feel like there's just too many question marks with AB now on the Oakland Raiders. But I don't know, maybe that risk is something that Tyler wants to make. I don't know. What do you think, Cam?
I don't even know if Julio would be drafted in the first, honestly. Like, maybe late first. Like, he was good last season, but he's just always hard to, like, really get behind. I don't know. Maybe I just have Julio bias.
I'm just looking up his ADP right now to see if we can figure it out here. Consensus number 15 overall. Yeah, so beginning of 2nd round.
Yeah. So, honestly, probably just Andrew Luck to secure getting a good quarterback and not have to give up any valuable pick for him. Something I would do.
Yeah.
Maybe Eric Ebron. He was good last season.
Yeah, Eric Ebron's definitely a contender there. I can't imagine you pick Antonio Callaway. And other than that, there's not a whole lot here else going on. Willie Snead for ninth?
I'm
Eh,
not getting a Lamar
eh.
Jackson wide receiver. Oh my god.
Alrighty. And that was our discussion on the impact of the NFL draft on keepers. Not as big of an impact of the draft itself, a lot more impact from free agency side, but all very valuable. And maybe some of you listeners will take our advice and thoughts into consideration or completely ignore us because, I don't know, it's not like we've won the league in a while. But, anyways.
Ouch.
Well, Cam's never won. I've won once, but you know.
Yeah, you definitely seem to have been doing better than me recently, Frank. God.
I didn't claim that I was doing better than you. However, I mean, you only outplaced me by 2 rankings last season, so let's not get a big head about ourselves here, all right?
Okay, fine. God.
Alrighty, and we will here now transition to a discussion of some rules about keepers and some other rules, just kind of a mid-season thoughts about rule changes from last season and rule changes going forward. And for this, we're going to bring on a guest. Alrighty, and we are back, and we are talking to our guest, Justin Moss. Justin Moss, welcome to the Anyone But Cam Offseason podcast. How are you doing today?
Good.
That's all you got?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alrighty, well, it's great to have you on, and we're going to talk some potential rule changes for the next season here. And Cam, why don't you kick us off here? This was your part here.
Alright, so first thing we could look at is just like rules for keepers in general. And just kind of like think about what we have right now and if we want to change it in the future. And one of the first things I was thinking we talk about is free agents that we pick up. Right now we have them being kept for a 9th round pick. And how do we like that right now? Keep it going? Do you think it's too early, too late?
I'm tempted to change it or to bump it up to an 8th.
Okay. I wouldn't be opposed to that, I don't think. Frankly.
Yeah, I mean 8th makes sense. It's kind of like so the original idea was that it was you would take you roster like 9 people on your team or you start 9 people and then so that you just use up your 9th for that round. So the question is like is that one round really like does that one round really make a difference between the 8th and the 9th rounds? Because like the issues here have mostly stemmed free agent pickups with so these players who like end up becoming like 2nd or 3rd round or even 1st round value of the next season.
Oh yeah, no, they become OP.
Right.
So
the question to me is like 9th to 8th. Yes, I think that's moving it in the right direction. But like, at one point are we just arbitrarily moving it, and how do we evaluate this? I guess it's more of a philosophical question than anything. But I definitely think moving it up is probably the right choice here.
All right. Something that we should definitely bring up to whenever we have our preseason meeting. Next is something Frank talked about, where if you have someone that you drafted in the 1st round and you want to keep them in the 1st round, should you have to give up maybe a late round pick as like compensation to make it so you are still like moving up around with them?
Yeah, it's because like when you look at things like specifically even you, Justin, we're talking about your keeper situation for the next season. You have 3 players who are currently valued at a 1st round pick value, and Christian McCaffrey, OBJ, and Joe Mixon. So the question is, do we just let you say keep Christian McCaffrey for 1st and then forfeit your 2nd round for OBJ or Mixon, or should we add an additional like penalty to say you also give up like an 8th round or a 7th round pick, because it seems a bit OP to have those like 2 1st round values. I know people in the past, specifically like Levi, has voiced concern over that, thinking that it is overpowered, and I tend to agree with him that being able to keep like 1st round players is and especially like potentially keeping someone who's 2nd round value for 1st, it's just like the value is just it's not quite balanced. And I think a good solution could be to have them give up an additional pick, say somewhere more in the mid rounds, like somewhere between like 7th through 10th, maybe even higher. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, Justin?
I'm in agreement. I think that's something that should be changed. The exact details of what exact round can be discussed.
Yeah, it can be negotiated for sure. How about you, Cam? What were you thinking?
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. There's no reason not to, I guess, because it actually, I don't know, because actually, there's a lot of people where it's kind of like someone that they could keep for a first, and it's kind of like, I mean, it's not great value, but they might as well keep him just to keep him on a team. And then if you have to end up giving up more picks, it might discourage that, which would just even more overpower the late round good keepers that some people have. So like it might take away some value of the people that actually still need it.
Huh. That is interesting. Something to consider. Something to consider. Let's just move on here to the next point, Cam. An issue that's very close to your heart is something that you've mentioned multiple times, and other people as well, not just you. But getting rid of keepers altogether. Not for this season, but for the next seasons going forward. What are your kind of main points here for this particular rule change?
Yeah, so I just feel like this is keepers are kind of the source of all of the main issues we have in this league regarding balancing and things like that. So if we just got rid of them, it'd help get a lot of people more happy about the balancing of the league. Um, Also, I don't know like how much more fun they've even made the league. I don't know. It kind of like devalues the draft a little bit because some teams are already just good before the draft even happens, and the draft
Right.
is one of my favorite parts of fantasy all like throughout the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It just seems like it might make life easier, make people that don't really care about it not have to put in more effort if they don't want to, uh, and just kind of balance everything.
Yeah. Justin.
Before keepers, I was always a fan of no keepers. But I kind of have a stake in the game with Christian McCaffrey, who's going to be a really good keeper. So for this year, it's going to be nice. But in the future, I can't deny that I'd be open to getting rid of keepers.
Last year, people definitely drafted with the idea of keepers in mind, so like it wouldn't be right to get rid of them now. But if we just make it clear before the draft that like we tried this and I don't know, it's not really doing anything for the league, then people don't have to draft with keepers in mind and just kind of go ahead.
Yeah, or we just reduce the amount of keepers to one, kind of a compromise. That could be a solution as well.
Mm-hmm.
All valid points. Kind of want to get the temperature of the league late when people are interested in football later into the year. Yeah, Cam, why don't you go ahead with this next point as well?
All right, and this is also another compromise that could be done to just kind of devalue keepers a little bit, but still have it kind of be a thing. And that's just keepers aren't based on when they were drafted or picked up or anything. It's just if you want to keep someone, the first person you want to keep is your first round pick, the second person that you want to keep is your second round pick, and then you can't keep any more than two people. And if you don't want to keep anyone, then you just get a first and a second round pick like normal. That way, like, there's no insane game breaking value people could have getting Kamara in the 13th round or something like that. But it'd still give you a little continuity between your team where you could keep people throughout the years. And, like, maybe someone would have, like, two solid first round picks in, I don't know, like, Ezekiel Elliott and I don't know, OBJ. They could theoretically have that, but still,
Mm-hmm.
the first round picks can bust too, so it wouldn't necessarily be inherently OP originally.
My initial thought on this is I think it's like a good compromise. Does this incentivize tanking? Or like trading away an amount of like super valuable players near the trade deadline to try and get that one stud, and then just tanking for the rest of the season. So you have two people going forward.
Like, I guess it kind of does, but you can never really know, like, if the trade deadline's week 9, like, how much value someone will have next season anyway. Like, Todd
Yeah.
Gurley, you could have traded the farm away to try and get him on your team at the trade deadline, and you would have been like, sweet, I'm stacked. But then you get to this season, and you're like, I don't even know if he's going to be worth one of those two picks now.
Right.
On top of it, people play fantasy to have fun, And by doing that, I feel like you'd be decreasing the amount of fun that you're going to have. So I'd have a hard time.
Like, you don't think people would tank because it'd be less fun?
Yeah, well, in that situation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Alrighty. And yeah, those are some initial thoughts of potential rule changes for next season. Let's review quickly some of the bigger changes from last season. I'll just recap them all real quickly just so we can all. I have a spreadsheet here with all the results from the voting last season. Last season we voted on commissioners, which Justin and I were voted in 11-1. I'm sure none of you regret those votes at any point last season. And then for a 12-0 vote, we voted to ratify the Constitution for the rest of time. Fab was voted yes 12-0. Divisions narrowly won with a vote of 9-3. The move to sleeper 12-0. Adding a doubleheader week 13 to ensure everyone plays everyone, won at a slim 8-3, barely getting 2/3 majority. And then the other big one here we had an IR spot for 12-0. So the IR spot, I think that's a pretty universal good change. No one really had an issue with that. But everything else is kind of up for debate, I guess. Well, the Constitution has been fine as well, but everything else. Like Fab, no, I think for the most part, it took people a little bit to get with Fab, but I think once people started to understand the value of Fab and like the pros like greatly outweigh the cons of all of the other free agency systems. But I guess we just go with that now first. Justin and Cam, do you guys think that we should continue going forward with Fab, or we should go back to whatever archaic form of waivers we were doing beforehand?
Yeah, I think it's a good system. It took a little while to get some of the kinks sorted out, like determining that you're not allowed to post pictures of your Fab dollar value. Some minor things like that, which are expected, but that's the role of the commissioners to make sure that things were ironed out, and I think they were ironed out pretty well.
And it did have some unexpected benefits, like people throwing Fab into trades to just kind of put it over the top. I thought that helped the league activity.
Yeah. And then I guess we could talk really about Sleeper as a whole. Do you guys think we should be continuing on with Sleeper, or we should move back to ESPN or move on to Yahoo? It's probably our last option here. What do you guys think? Did you guys think you had a better time on Sleeper than you did on ESPN, or I guess what were your overall takeaways from Sleeper as a whole?
It sounds like it's not going to be getting any worse than it was, so it was fine. So it should only be better than fine from here on out.
No, like even this offseason, they added like player cards as a thing they have, to where it's just a little more detailed when you click on someone to like see how they've done every week, how their team ranks in like rushing attempts, passing attempts, and scoring and stuff like that. So I think it's good.
Yeah, I feel like it has all of the pros of all the other ones and some of the cons, but I do think like the Sleeper chat is a very valuable thing to have lively debates about and grilling sessions of people through trades, and it was great to see like the discussion after waivers every Tuesday when do waivers Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday, right? And they're only adding in things, and it's only getting better. I've been tinkering around with the tools just this morning, and it's like, the flexibility is unmatched with every other platform available. And then maybe the most hotly debated thing in the league for the entirety of last season is our division system. Pros and cons. I still am pro divisions, and you believe me or not, but I am taking all bias out of this opinion. Yes, I did in fact benefit from divisions system. There is no denying that whatsoever. However, I do think that divisions is the way to go as opposed to the two conference systems, because it did create like fun rivalry type games. It's fun to start your season and end your season against your guys. There was like factions farming between Rotlack and Alphas and SNS, and just like legitimate like rivalries between the divisions and inside the divisions. And yeah, and I guess something people have questioned before, or I guess put into question before is should the divisions change? Like, should we change the divisions so that they're more balanced or whatever? Which I don't know how you could possibly. I don't know how you balance divisions off of last season's rankings. It doesn't make any sense to me. Um, but yeah, I guess Cam and Justin, you should go ahead and some of your guys' thoughts and takeaways from the division system from last season.
I think that it's good that divisions are geography based. Made the league more fun. Any change that does that is a good change. Like you said, added in rivalries. Yeah, as far as changing, I have no idea how you would go about that.
Yeah.
But overall, in favor.
Yeah, the only change that I could think of trying to balance it is just take the three worst division or worst finishers of last season and let them draft a new division. Just trying to get the best division they can around them. But kind of like having the long term enemies in my division. It's kind of funny how you got rivalries within your division, but also you got a little division pride of just
Right.
standing up for your teams within there. It was a good time. Logan, what do you think of divisions? Oh, Logan can't hear me. Oh, he can't.
What?
What do you think of divisions in fantasy?
I like dunking on Frankie. That's always fun.
Yep. Logan liked getting dunked on.
You like getting dunked on? Yeah, that happens. Yeah, so other changes we added the double header to the end of the season to make sure that everyone played each other in week 13, which somewhat confusing in terms of just from a visual sense of trying to see who you're facing, because there just isn't an option for that in any fantasy system. But I definitely think it's the right move, because otherwise we're kind of just arbitrarily making it so some people don't play other people, and balancing of that could cause issues. So personally, I'm all in favor of continuing double headers. What do you guys think?
I think it should be moved so that it's not the last game of the season.
Interesting. Okay.
Where would you put it?
Maybe right before the second round of division games.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when you said that too. And that way, your doubleheader's not necessarily within your division.
Yeah.
And then you can finish the season out with your division. I wouldn't be opposed to that. As long as that's when bye weeks are over. Because I feel like that's important.
That's actually, yeah, those are good thoughts. I'll have to keep that in mind. We'll have to keep that in mind for when we get to voting.
Why does it matter if
so
it's
yeah.
not during bye weeks?
Well, I feel like you wouldn't want to have 2 games when bye weeks are. Because if you have really bad bye weeks that week, you just kind of get double screwed,
Yeah, but yeah, all right. I guess that's just a game of chance.
Well, then you might be drafting and not have people have a bye week that week.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll discuss it going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, let's move on here. Last topic here. We'll talk about possible future changes. We currently do not have a decision on how the draft order is going to go this season. In previous seasons, we did it by the March Madness thing. But I was very much against it this season. I've always been against it. But
Maybe because you're bad at it. God.
because I'm bad at it, yeah. Sure, that's what it is. Not that it's just completely random and irrelevant to fantasy. But nobody brought up the question about if it would have an impact on draft position, which I was very happy about because I was just hoping it never got brought up, which was my strategy there. And it didn't. So some ideas is a lottery system, or reverse of standings, reverse of points scored, lots of different ways. Do you guys have any opinions on how we figure out our draft order for the next season?
I personally like non sequiturs, like a game of skill or something that's completely unrelated to fantasy football.
Okay.
Okay, here's how I think we can balance it to where it helps teams that didn't do well, but also is non sequitur. I think we have one game or one competition type thing, but it's competed between non-playoff teams and playoff teams. So the non-playoff teams will definitely have between picks 1 and 6 of where they want to draft, but the order of them will be determined by this game, and the playoff teams will be randomized based on the game of 7 through 12. So that way, like, teams that lost will definitely have a better pick than teams that made playoffs, but the order of that will be determined by some kind of game.
Right. That's kind of where the lottery idea comes in for basketball and hockey. But yeah. All things to consider. The next point we have here is, will the last place punishment ever happen? There is, in fact, a clause in the Constitution, which I could read out if I find it. Here it is. Punishment clause. Clause number 2, the punishment clause. In the event of an owner finishing the season in 12th place, the owner is then subjected to a punishment. Punishment is to be decided by the members of the league. Blah, blah, blah. If they refuse to comply, the punishment is... Okay, if an owner refuses to comply with their assigned punishment, given that the punishment is not egregious and is in good fun, before the time of the next draft, the owner will automatically give up their draft pick priority and may also face additional repercussions. I put that in there to make it as incentivize to people to actually do it, but the fact is we never came up with what the punishments were going to be.
Who lost
in the
and
first
what was
place.
the punishment?
JP lost.
JP lost the season, but we never decided a punishment. Previous losers are Jake Logan and Dylan as well, who have also never not faced punishments.
I think that's just part of the history and lore. There will come a time when somebody does do the last place punishment, and then there's going to be a backlog of last place people that are required to comply.
Yeah, honestly, that's not a bad suggestion. What if we just had one punishment for all three of them? All three of them do the same thing and just kind of set the slate clean. And what could that punishment be? That's the big question, is what could the punishment be? Because if we look back in the history books, Cam, myself, and we made a poster for Dylan to stand on the street corner, which I said honk because I suck at fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And we made it, and he promised at least half a dozen times to do it, and just never did it. So.
What does the poster say?
Honk, because I suck at fantasy.
Yeah. So, yeah. I guess if anyone has punishment ideas, maybe write them in the chat or remember them or something. I don't know. Let's just move on here. A couple last ones to wrap up here. Cam, you wrote in here kicker flex. What?
I am a strong proponent of allowing kickers to be flexed.
Yes.
Can you give me an argument as to why kickers should not be allowed to flex?
Well, that's not true. That's not fair. You can't say I want that. You can't just be I want to make this change. Argue against me. You have to make an argument for it first.
So the flex position exists basically to give you some exposure to different positions, bye weeks, and other, diamonds in the rough or other gems, so to speak. And I think kickers are definitely a part of that. Kickers are kind of undervalued. Nobody really drafts kickers, except for the few top tier kickers. Fairly early on in the draft. But I think it would make it more fun. Add another dimension of complexity to the draft, and overall increase the value of the position.
All right. Arguments against kickers in the flex is kickers are the least correlated position between draft position and final season finish, because it's hardest to predict how kickers will finish, and that takes away all the prediction and knowledge part of fantasy and just makes it random. Also, no one makes rankings for kicker flex, so it makes it harder to actually value people based on.
That's not a good argument, because that's just saying that because you can't go out and find somebody else's work and make decisions based on somebody else's work that it shouldn't be the case.
That's saying that because it makes it more complicated and harder to figure out how to do things for our league, where half of them don't want to put much effort in.
What do you mean makes it more difficult?
Because instead of just looking up fantasy rankings and just drafting based on that, you have to actually take into account.
Or it incentivizes making savvy trades based on early season performance and trying to lock up two good kickers.
But that's incentivized in other ways anyway, without just having to be about kickers.
And even then, it's a flex. It's not like you're all of a sudden you're adding an extra kicker spot. Like, it's just a flex.
What you're misunderstanding here is that you don't have to have a second kicker. It's an option, not a requirement.
Yeah.
Point value wise, scoring, a good kicker can rival a wide receiver, tight end,
Yeah, I agree.
or running back.
So, would you want to make a new flex position to where we have 2 flexes and one of them is kicker flex, or just add kicker and the availability to our current flex?
Allow the current flex position to include kicker. I think it would be a fun change. It would be wild, and bring some real fun into the season. And I think this would be a good option for a 1-season trial.
Okay.
Implement it, see how it happens, see how things unfold, make a decision from there.
My last argument against it is I don't think Sleeper has the functionality to do it by itself. So we would have
There
to
is no platform that has that functionality.
we would have to have 2 kicker positions, I think, and then honor rule people wouldn't put in a flex or a kicker.
Well, from what I understand, from what Frankie's been telling me, we can simply contact Sleeper, and they're pretty responsive on Twitter, and have them make the change.
All right, I will guarantee you that if you contact Sleeper and make that a possibility to add to the league, I will vote and campaign for it to be something that happens.
As commissioner, I would be, that's just doing my job.
Okay.
So I'd be willing to do that. But Frankie, what's your opinion on kicker flex?
Well, as if you guys can remember do you remember what my team name is at the end of the season on Sleeper?
I love Jake Elliott.
No, it's I Love Kickers.
Oh.
Jake Elliott notwithstanding. So yeah, adding kickers to flex. It's like silly and something only our league would do, but it's not like it's game breaking, and I think it could be a fun change. I do want to fact check the one point, Justin. Did I hear you correctly when you said that people don't really draft kickers?
So let's just say when you're looking at the draft, I don't know if you could pull up last season's draft board.
I have it right in front of me.
But you have Greg Zuerlein, Justin Tucker, maybe Gostkowski. I think are the premier kickers.
Well,
Not in the draft though. If you were to look at nobody drafts kickers in the first 8 rounds really, with the exception of like known studs.
So in our league last season, Greg Zuerlein and Steven Gostkowski were the 1001 and the 1002. Will Lutz
in the 10th round.
10th round first
So
pick.
Okay.
10-1, the 10-2. Then the 11-5 was Will Lutz, and then the 12-5 was Justin Tucker. But I was just gonna, where you said earlier that people don't really draft kickers. There were 9 kickers drafted last season and 10 defenses, so it's comparable. The only people who didn't draft kickers were me, Cam, and Dylan. So, fun fact for you all. But I was looking. I guess nobody. I would have thought somebody would have picked 2 kickers just for the fun of it, but nobody picked 2 kickers, which is kind of wild. And only one person picked 2 defenses, and that was you, Justin. So
I picked 2 kickers.
Well, you got the Vikings from a trade, and you also got the you got the Chargers. So.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I think bottom line, adding, making the flex even more flexible to include kickers would be a fun 1-season trial option. I think it has a lot of potential to make the game more fun.
Do you want to know what I would want to do? Is turn the tight end position into a tight end kicker flex.
Now, I'd be open to that as well. I just think that we need a kicker flex.
Yeah, because, tight ends, after you get through, like, the top 6, it's kind of pointless. So, like, if you just replace that with a kicker.
Not to go on too much of a tangent, but the tight end position is, I would say, could be fairly labeled as bullshit. Because there's such a disparity between, tight end 1 and tight end 9. Yeah. And I think that kicker flex is definitely something that could even that out.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be in support of that?
Yeah.
Right now, Frankie, what about you?
I would be more in support of that than the previous suggestions. Yeah, tight end kicker flex makes the most sense to me.
Well, moving forward too, I need to know: are you going to be advocating for or against?
Justin, did I not just say that my name last season was I love kickers? Like, I don't know what else you would need from me.
Okay, I'm glad to see we're all in agreement.
Alrighty, unless there's anything else, I think we're good to wrap up.
I'm good.
Good to wrap up. Alrighty. Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Anyone But Cam Offseason Podcast. I have been Frankie.
This is Cam over here.
And Justin.
Thank you, Justin, for joining us, and we will catch you all next week.